Hey everybody, you're watching Conversations in Pop Culture, and I'm your host, Andrew Davis, and I am independent media. So what that means is I appreciate when people share this out, like it, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the Facebook page, as well as if you like what you hear, please support all my avenues. And I do have Buy Me a Coffee if you like what you hear. But beyond that, obviously I have with me Tom Hutchison and CB Zane. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us again, man.
Yeah, appreciate it, Andrew.
You know, I'm excited, and obviously, Tom, you're just on my comic hangout, and so there's a lot of stuff going on. I don't think it's a secret about what's going on because right now, Bad Kitty is going on, and that I think is Tom's first non-Big Dog Inc. property working on because it's a Dynamite property. I know CB, you worked on a lot of stuff. I don't know if you worked for Dynamite before, but I know you worked for a bunch of different things. But I am curious how all this came about because it kind of is a big deal, I think, for Tom at least.
Yeah, I know CB's worked for like Dynamite and all kinds of other, or sorry, not Dynamite, Devil's Due, and some other folks. So, but this was the first book I'm doing for somebody else. And basically it came about a year ago, this time last August. I was talking with Nick Barucci, who's the head of Dynamite, and we were talking about something else, something with the Comic Book Shopping Network, live sales, just general chit chat. And when we were done, I just kind of threw out, I was like, so what's up with your chaos stuff? What's going on? And he was like, well, we have this thing with Purgatory and this thing and this thing. I was like, oh, okay. And so I was like, so let me know when you need some Bad Kitty, in your life over there. And basically just kind of, kicked the door open a little bit. And apparently it was more than enough to kick it wide open because his response was immediately, yeah, why don't we crowdfund something like that? And I was like, oh my God. All right. I was not prepared for like an immediate answer. But it was great. And I was like, oh, okay, well, let me tell you what I think we should do with this thing. And then his next thing was, well, who do you want, to do the book with you? Because I was thinking like they would find an artist, they would find a colorist, they would, this is all new to me. So I was like, well, I got a couple of people I could show you. And I showed him two different artists because they had two different styles. So I showed him CB because I had worked with CB for so long. And then I showed him Carlos Reno, and they have very different styles. Because again, I don't know if the editors are going to want a style for it or, I just, this was all on the fly. And so they were like, well, what do you think is going to work? And I was like, well, I think that CB would probably, because we've been working together on Goth Day and other stuff that we've done, and this is going to be kind of like a darker, it's not really a horror story. It is kind of, it's sort of supernatural horror and mystery and whatever. I was like, I think CB really would kind of, make this work. And they were like, cool, we're in. We like what he does. We like the samples. Set it up. So we got him set up and we were off to the races. I had to write a script and which for those that remember last year, I had elbow injuries right about this time as well. I couldn't even sit at the computer and type for very long. I was in the middle of doing my stuff and then I had to do this thing and I was like, oh my God, I'm an invalid right now. This is terrible. But we got it done over time. CB started working on the pages. We showed it to them. They were like, cool. And we just got it rolling. We really wanted to get it out last year because last year was the 20-year anniversary of Bad Kitty. But because we got the idea in basically the last quarter of the year, it was going to be very difficult. And so we eventually realized that, yeah, okay, let's just everybody take your time. Let's get the cover artist lined up. Let's let CB have time to do it. Let's have Chris have time to color it, and just we're gonna miss that anniversary, but we're gonna make an awesome book. And so that's kind of where we were at the tail end of last year, and then finishing up the book earlier this year.
So let's even talk a little bit about that because Bad Kitty's been around for a while. I don't know much about Bad Kitty. I don't think I'm the only one. And if I am the only one, well, I guess I'm in a club all by myself here. But what is this like? Because from my understanding of the book, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's almost like a reboot where everything that came before this book certain things might be Easter eggs, they might be throwbacks, but it's not necessary. And in a lot of ways, and at least in my opinion, that solves a lot of issues of continuum. That solves a lot of issues of you could jump in at this point, and it also solves a lot of other things. What is that like? And
yeah, this is I call it a reset, because when Bad Kitty was created back in the day, 2001 Chaos Comics, along with Lady Death and all that kind of stuff, Purgatory and so on. When Dynamite acquired them, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, or whenever it was, Bad Kitty was sort of a background character for a lot of what they were doing at the initial stages. And then in 2014, they attempted to bring her back into her own book, whatever, with a one shot. But they modified her to be like a dual personality. So then that's where the Bad Kitty came from. So you had Catherine Bell, and then she'd have this dual personality thing that was Bad Kitty. And they only did the one issue with it. I guess it didn't go over well. I don't know, because it never came back. And then Bad Kitty for a while was in some of their crossovers. So they did like a Red Sonja Chaos Universe crossover thing. So she was in there, kind of background again. And so when I pitched this to Nick, I was like, look, I don't want to do the split personality thing. Can we erase that and just take this back to basics, which is her as a cop who was framed for killing her partner, framed by the mob. So there's a lot of stuff. There's like the mob, there's like voodoo, there's Louisiana magic, there's all kinds of stuff in the Bad Kitty world. It's a supernatural world, but it also has like mob ties and detectives and things like that. So I kind of wanted to just be like, can we just take it back to that and sort of not reboot it, not retcon it, just kind of reset it to being where it was, connecting back to the original stories enough that we create some backstory, but not so heavy that people are going to be lost. And then as we work from those previous stories, we work the story forward and start adding our elements into it that are all of the threads that we can take it forward, and keep telling these supernatural monster cop detective stories. And so that's what it is. And so this book, you have absolutely nothing else you need to read. You can dive into this book 100%, start at the beginning, and you will be told what is going on. You'll be like, okay, I get it. Oh, that was her boyfriend. He's dead. Okay, get it. I get it. And all of the new stuff that's happening. Now, if you want to go backwards and see what came first, there's only about a dozen issues of Bad Kitty between her miniseries and then some various crossovers and things that Chaos did. So there's not a whole lot of like backstory, like heavy backstory. It's not like I'm coming into Wonder Woman that has 75 years of continuity, right? So that kind of makes it really easy too. There's not a lot of weight that we have to carry here. It's just like, we know where she was. We know where she hangs out. We know what she does now. And let's sort of connect all that, Rubik's Cube it together, and then shoot it forward.
Yeah, and to even go into that as well, where obviously, I mean, Bad Kitty to some degree only has like a dozen issues, as you were saying, to even work off from an artistic standpoint as well as a script standpoint. So what is that like for you, CB, coming into this as well? Because there is some stuff to reference with Bad Kitty, but there's also, I would imagine, a lot of things that you get to create and draw and work off of the script, where you can now, and even Tom, you too, with writing it, you can now also invent certain things. But there also is certain elements, I would imagine, you have to keep just to sort of, I guess, keep the establishment of the character is a good way to put it, if that makes any sense.
Keep the aesthetic. Yeah, we had to. We weren't allowed to like come in and just fully change her costume, and we needed the visual. And also, I wanted the visual to kind of remain the same too. I didn't want to come in with like a whole lot of dramatic changes. But CB did get to do little tinkering with it here and there, and
there's not a lot to tinker with a blonde bombshell in leather. That's always going to work. And I kind of recall Bad Kitty when Tom talked to me about doing this, because I collected a little bit of Chastity back in the day, and Purgatory, and I remembered Bad Kitty, but I had to go back and look. And I did go back and get the first 4 issues of the original run, but I didn't look at them at all, interior art or anything. The only thing I really looked at were the covers to get a feel for what the character looked like. And then usually my method is like I'll do some doodles here and there to get a feel for the character. I may even try to like reference an actress or something that I think, okay, this is kind of the look I want to go for, just to give myself a visual reference if I want to position her face, especially in different positions. And then I just go from there. And then Tom's really good. Having worked with him as much as I have, I think we have a real good feel for what we do. So I know Tom's scripts. He usually supplies, if there's something that needs to be referenced, he'll put a picture right in there. Like some of the things that are used in the story that are in the Louisiana, New Orleans area. You know, he was like, hey, this is what we're looking for. Or even Bad Kitty's bike. Her motorcycle was a reference point for me. And then, you know, from there, it's just a matter of getting the feel for the book, you know. And again, kind of like Tom was saying, it's, you know, it's sort of that horror action voodoo element, you know, bad girl art. And coming off of Goth Day and having done my own book, Black Rabbit, that's very noir-esque. I just brought those elements into it. A lot of shadow, a lot of falling into shadow. And, you know, even the secondary characters, Tom was always like, hey, picture, you know, this person. This is kind of what I'm looking for. So I had that at least verbal reference, and that makes things a lot easier for my part.
Yeah, and to even go further into that, because obviously, and I don't think this is any secret per se, and sort of just alluded to it, but the two of you have been working together for at least 5 years, if not longer.
Oh, like a decade. We've been working heavier recently, but he's been with Big Dog Inc. almost since the beginning in one capacity or another.
I was being conservative in my statement because I didn't know the exact yearage, and I figured I would go under versus over. Yeah. But one of the things that I think people don't think about when comics get created is the relationship between the writer and the artist, and even the letterer and the colorist per se as well. And so what is this like, given the fact that you two have been working together for 10 years since a lot of Big Dog Inc. books? And so what is that like? Because I guess, Tom, you trust CB, and CB, you know what Tom wants. And if Tom puts something in there, you can take a guess. That's probably going to be 9 times out of 10, if not 10 out of 10, what Tom is looking for. And so what is that like? Because I think that's something that people don't understand. And furthermore, to even add another caveat, you're now working on a book that's not owned by Tom. It's owned by another company. And so that, I would imagine, also adds other pressure, because it's now you're, for lack of a better word, playing with somebody else's intellectual property.
Yeah, I mean, that's why when they were like, well, who do you want to use? You know, CB was at the top of the list. And I knew that, I mean, even when he and I worked together on stuff, it's very rare that he throws a page back at me that's like wrong, right? There might be like hey, in this panel, let's do something a little, you know, kitschy or close up on this or what, you know, but generally speaking, you know, he knows how to take my script and interpret it in a context that is both artistic for him, and that he knows that I'm probably going to be like, yeah, that was good. The one thing that we kind of went back and forth on Goth Day 2 years ago was we were trying to figure out a way to incorporate musical notes actually into the story, so they were like blending into the panels and stuff like that. That took some work, but you know, he was great at it. Even though I was like, I don't like that, like, let's do this. Like, he was like, okay, yep. And then finally we kind of figured it out. And then we were just running, and then he had it in mind. And then every time we needed those notes again, it was like, whoosh, there they go, just drop them right in. So he's got a great sense of storytelling, but also page layout, right? It's not just what's in the panels, but it's like, why is it a rectangle? Why is it a square? Why is it a circle? Why is it tilted? You know, and a lot of that kind of stuff. You know, you see a lot of that stuff in movies, right? Like the camera's moving all the time, with, especially in action movies and stuff. So CB knows how to kind of create the drama through panel and page design, in addition to what, you know, what the characters are actually doing. So yeah, so he was immediately, as soon as I was asked, I was like, yeah, we gotta put CB on the list.
And I think it helps too that I know Tom writes with a very cinematic kind of feel. Like he puts down in words the movie he sees, and I'm sure there are some writers that do that, and I'm sure there's some that think like it is a comic book. Here is page 1, panel 1. Here's 2, 3, exactly. And I know even if I wanted to extend a panel, add a panel, whatever, before I go to any final work, I'm always okaying it with Tom anyway. Like, hey, you know, how's this layout look? And compared to where we were like 10 years ago to now, it's very, very little changes. You know, it was funny you brought up the music notes, because that was probably, I don't know, maybe that was the biggest hiccup we've had in a while. And that wasn't even really a big deal. It was just, all right, how is this going to work? And once you were like, yeah, that's it, then I was like, okay, I know where I'm going now. Like, I know what he wants. And then it became easy after that point. But yeah, and for me as an artist, I find myself spending more time studying film than I do comic books. And I try to bring that into my panel work. And camera angles, and so that's how I think. You know, I don't think, oh, what's going to make a cool panel here? It's like, nope, I'm telling this story. What do I need to show here, and how is it going to transition to the next panel? And then the other caveat about doing comic books is the way you read them, because you got to draw the eye from left to right, top to bottom, and I really try to be conscientious of getting that flow so that your eyes naturally moving around the page.
Yeah, and comics are just interesting because as a reader of comics, and I read a lot of stuff, I have a lot of control. So unless a book takes place within an hour, I could interpret something a conversation taking place in a minute or in 5 minutes. Versus in a movie, in a book, there's, you know, obviously a lot more narrative, I feel, and so it's just a fascinating medium in that realm as well.
Yeah, and that's one cool thing. Like, having worked with Tom, he does a really nice job with the timing in his stories. There's a page in Bad Kitty that takes place over the course of an entire day, but it's really the same shot. It's Bad Kitty in a cemetery, and it goes from like midday to midnight, basically. Which is really cool. That was a beautiful page that Chris colored, and it's just got little nuances about the storytelling. So there's times in Tom's books where you have like a whole page that really takes, it's what, 12 hours of time, or not, if not more. But then there's these moments too where I might do 3-4 panels in a row that happened in the matter of like 4 seconds. Because that's part of the cinematic storytelling too. There's a drama to it, and I think, you know, Bad Kitty kind of has all of that, which is really cool.
And
yeah,
monsters.
No. What are you saying?
And monsters.
Yeah, and monsters. Bad girls and monsters.
and to even go further into this, because obviously both of you are now deep into your careers, where this is, you're not coming out and saying, let's do, you know, an Indiegogo, it's not crowdfunded. You know, you got 10 plus years in the business, both of you. You know, obviously you, Tom, as a writer, you CB doing art. And so what is that also like? Because you feel that it's easier because you do have that experience, and then also you're working with Dynamite at this point, versus if you were in year 3, that would be more pressure. And you also feel that given that 10 years of experience, writing it more cinematic, also understanding where a comic needs to breathe.
Oh, yeah.
Because anytime you take somebody's money for something, you know, it's always a little bit of a different pressure, I would imagine.
Yeah, you can see, I mean, I can see it, which means probably most people can see it. If you look back at my early books, like any of the books that have been running for a long time, Critter, Penny for Your Soul, Legend of Oz, you look back at the early books, And then you look at how we're doing things now, 10, 12 years later, there's a dramatic change in what we did, how I wrote things, what I wanted to appear on the page. I mean, some of that was artistic, like the artist kind of made decisions, and I let artists make decisions in a lot of cases. So some of that is definitely on the artist, but I definitely can look back at my old work and be like, yeah, this is not as good as what I'm doing right now, but that's the way it should be. Like everything that you do should continue to elevate and grow and evolve and get better and better the more that you're doing it. So if I was still in year 3 or 4 and Dynamite was like, hey, write me Bad Kitty, that's a completely different world than being 11 years into writing, having been published by Aspen, all that kind of stuff. So I think that I was definitely ready for it now at this point, far more than I would have been in year 3, 4, 5. And I understand the industry more as well, just from having been in it, from running comic shops to owning my own shop to publishing my own work to dealing with Diamond to, being published by Aspen and seeing how Aspen does it, going into Kickstarters and learning how that works. Like I've done almost every portion of the industry at this point. So when we came around last year, it was 11 years in the business, and that's when Bad Kitty came around. So I was like, I'm ready for this now, more so than I would have been back then.
Yeah, and for me, like, drawing is always a fun competition, if I can say it that way, in that I'm always trying to put forward my best work. And obviously my art, like any other artist, my art has evolved. I look back at what I did 10 years ago compared to now, and I cry a little bit. It's not quite that bad, but I do the same thing from something I did yesterday to today. Like I look back at it, I'm like, oh, I could do this better. And so you're constantly doing that. Yeah, even with Dynamite, this is my first work with Dynamite. There wasn't the pressure to do great because it was Dynamite. It was pressure to do great because I want people to look at my artwork and just say wow, and just like it and want to see more of it. So I'm always doing that. So it didn't feel different, but kind of with Tom, had it been 10 years ago, yeah, it may have been a little bit different pressure, because nothing was established back then for me, and now it's kind of like, okay, I know what I'm capable of, I know what I can do, and obviously working with Tom was good because it was a familiarity with him, but I've worked with so many different writers at this point and editors that you have to be flexible as an artist. And I learned a long time ago when I was showing my portfolio around, listen to people's critiques, have a thick skin about stuff. And I've also learned too, like, I don't know everything as an artist. And sometimes somebody will throw out an idea that I hadn't thought of in terms of, well, what if we did the cover this way, or it's like, oh yeah, let's try that. Usually I'm my own worst enemy. I'll give myself some impossible angle to draw, and I'll be like, yeah, this is going to look great. And then I'm hating myself because I'm like, yeah, you had to choose that up shot because, drawing a face like this is very difficult. So yeah, I mean, it's a challenge, and it's a fun challenge. I'm glad I could be part of it. I'm hoping I get a chance to do some more Bad Kitty.
Yeah, and I was even going to just even ask the idea and see how you guys feel about this, is that, do you also feel that if now, given that both of you have been established in the industry, it's not imposter syndrome versus when you're like in year 2 or year 3? Because I've spoken to people who have gotten, publishing deals with their first book, and then, that deal sort of goes to the wind 3 years later. And then it takes them almost 6 years to sort of get back to that ladder, and they sort of realize their mistakes and that they weren't exactly ready for it, and they weren't ready for all the publicity and also all the pressure. And do you feel at this point it's saying, hey, we've been in the industry so long that we know what is expected. We understand that there's going to be bleeding cool articles about us. There's going to be discussions that Dynamite's going to push it out, and that people are actually going to pay attention because the word Dynamite is actually in the title, and it's being published by that. And you feel that, given if you didn't have all the experience, that might affect it, because I think that's something that people really struggle with, and I think a lot of creators right now are sort of coming into that a little bit with a lot of publishing deals they're getting.
Well, I mean, I had a little bit of that, like when Aspen, took us under their wing and they were like, we'll publish your stuff. Like, I was kind of like, wow, I am part of Michael Turner's freaking company that he founded. Like, what just happened right there? And Frank and Vince and Peter and everybody over there, they were fantastic with me and with all the stuff that we want to do with Big Dog Inc. there. So, and again, that was year 4 going into year 5. So it's kind of like, hey, you created something for 4 years, and now suddenly this well-known brand has picked you up and said, hey, we're gonna help you do it a little more. Like, wow, that's amazing. So I think that helped a lot for me as far as like sort of figuring out, like, is anyone paying attention really? Am I just sitting on an island out here and every now and then a boat goes by, or do people really know what the hell's going on? And the answer was people knew what was going on. I had been around to dozens upon dozens of cons. I'd met all these people. They knew who I was. And so that was how the Aspen thing kind of came about. And so now, again, flash forward from that, we were with them for 3 years, and it's now been about 6 or so years since then. And now Dynamite, is there. And now, granted, I reached out to Dynamite. They didn't reach out to me, but they were open. And again, Nick knew who I was, or at least had some awareness of who I was. It wasn't just that I was Tom. It was that I'm Tom from Big Dog Inc. and this is what we do. So when I reached out to Nick, it was like Nick was open to what I was telling him. Like, well, what do we do this? Let's do it this way. What blah, blah, blah. And so that, again, that was another, like we've said in this whole interview, is like, what? This was too easy, right? It's like I expected all of these walls because I had heard from year after year after year from people.
So let me
I had this wall. I had this wall. I had this wall. Rejection letters, right? I don't even have a rejection letter. I've been rejected, but I don't even have a rejection letter to put on my wall and like be pissed off about it. I had to literally create the chip myself and put it on my shoulder when I was rejected by All Image and everybody at the beginning. But again, kind of circling back to what you were talking about, what I was doing back then, while it may have been good, let's call it good, it was not for Image Comics at that point. No way. I can look back at Penny for Your Soul and Critter and look at those things that I was trying to pitch and be like, no, there's no reason they should have ever picked that up. But I can now look at what those brands are now, and I can say, yeah, but look what we did. And so that's kind of a really good feeling.
So what I was going to challenge you slightly, where the idea why I think there was fewer and fewer walls now is that all that work has been put into it.
Fewer what?
Fewer and fewer walls that are opposing you right now.
Okay.
Because I think you put in the work.
It's multiple things though. Walls have been torn down because of things like crowdfunding. Where it used to be, you had to pitch to a publisher had to accept you. They had to then send it to Diamond had to accept you. Gets shown to retailers have to accept you. There's just like this insane chain of events for you to get a comic book in comic book stores. Now we exist in a world where tons of people, hundreds of people, if not thousands of people, are making comics that aren't in stores. But they're going into fans' hands, they're going into artist collectors' hands, they're going into people that like indie comics. So the walls have been torn down. The gatekeeping is still there in the industry, 100%. It's still very difficult to kind of create all the links in that chain to get into a comic book store. But you don't need that anymore. It's something you can still do. It's something you can have as a goal. I want to be in comic book stores. Awesome, do it. But it's not a requirement anymore in order to make comics, either kind of for fun or a hobby or like a side job, or to even push and say, look, I want to make this my job, you never have to be in a comic book store. And so it's a really interesting time for comics right now. So yeah, there's a lot of layers to that question, and partially is, yeah, I've been doing this for 12 years. I'm confident in my brand of what I do. I'm confident that the people that read the books that I produce like them. So I can probably go talk to Dynamite and they'd be like, yeah, okay, let's. And so, it worked out. Maybe easier than it should have, but easier only because we're 12 years in and I've made some small, tiny foothold, that people pay attention to.
I think that's a big statement, though, Tom. I mean, it's 12 years of doing something. It's not like it was like you did a year, instant sensation. You're the American Idol of comics, and now you can. So, there's, in as much as there's like all that hard work, there's a love and a passion for it. I think that's why we're here talking about comics, because we've all grown up. We love comics, or maybe we haven't grown up because we love comics, but it's just it's an awesome, unique literature, and that's why I love working on them and doing them, and fruits of your labor hopefully get you to this point.
Yeah, the saying is that an overnight success is 10 years, and I mean I've been doing this entire show for about 10 years, and now I feel like I'm just starting to get averaged at it, and I'm also getting bigger guests, but it took 9.5 years to get to that point. And people are like, how do you get person A, B, C, and D? And I'm like, well, you have to understand that I've been doing it for 9.5 to 10 years. And so I've interviewed a lot of people. I've asked a lot of people, and it's a little bit of luck, but it's also I've stayed in the game long enough. And I think that's what I was getting at, is that
consistency is a key to comics. And it's why indies still kind of struggle in some ways, because really anyone can kind of do one issue. That's sort of almost easy. It's, are you coming back for 2 and 3 and 4? Are you going to finish your story arc? Whatever it is, 3, 4, 5 issues.
How fast you can get it out too. Where if you're getting out 4 issues a year, that's pretty good. If you're even getting out 3.
Yeah, but you don't even have to do that. Like it can be 2 a year. It can be 1 a year. As long as it's happening, then your fans will be like, okay, we understand it's happening. But there's so many that kind of come in, do one, get overwhelmed, because it's an overwhelming process, especially if you're kickstarting. It's an overwhelming process. They get overwhelmed, and then there is no number 2, because they're just like, this is too much for me, I can't do it. And so while I'm not putting them down, the point I'm trying to make is that when people come in and they're like, well, I'm going to grab number 1, and this happens in comic book stores too. This used to happen all the time, like in the 90s, early 2000s. Indies would come out, you'd get 1, maybe 2 issues, and then they'd be gone. Just because they didn't have the infrastructure built up to maintain the consistency to get 2, 3, 4, 5 trade paperback, whatever. So it's and that's what I'm saying. It's the walls are down and you can do it however you want to do it. But even in that context, you still have to have a thought process of, am I going to do this once a year and just have some fun with it? Am I going to try and do a story arc and be finished? Like, let's do 4 issues and be done. Or is this going to be like my job and I have to like treat it? There's 3 ways to sort of treat it. But the problem is that every time somebody sort of buys a number 1 and then there's no number 2, they get gun shy about another number 1. Oh yeah, but what about this guy? Is this guy going to do it? So I think having, when I go to Comic Cons and I have these tables of just product out, and it's like 5 volumes of Oz, 5 volumes of Critter, 5 volumes of Penny. There's like a perception of, oh, this guy's like, he's been doing this and this is what he does, and we might buy everything that he has today, but we're pretty sure there's going to be more coming based on he's been around for a while. So
it's also the idea that people want a lot of content. So I'm a big anime guy, and I'm right now in the middle of Dragon Ball, and I know there's Dragon Ball Z after that, and then I know there's Super. So I know when I'm investing in Goku as a 12-year-old, I'm going to see him when he's 12, 13, 14, and all the way up through till he's like 60. And so I'm getting a huge amount of content, and I know there's a lot more coming. and it makes me feel more comfortable because I feel like, okay, I'm investing my time. And I think that's something that's how I
think I think even when there's a finale, like for example, Invincible, right? Invincible ended. It's over. It's done. Robert Kirkman's book. So, but he ran it for what, 11 or 12 years or something of monthly comics. So I think that it's okay that there's a finale. No one should come into this thinking that we have to tell this story for the rest of our lives.
Right.
But if you are in the middle of the story, let's say, and you're selling it to a customer, then you hope that they're excited that this is volume 5, but we're working on volume 6, and they get excited and they want to be involved with you continuing on. But like all of my books, Penny for Your Soul has an ending. It will come to an end. Ursa Minor will come to an end. Critter will come to an end. They all have finales. They were all written that way, conceived that way, that they're not eternal books. So everything has a finale. How long that takes is going to vary, but yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with having like like I used to really love collecting miniseries. I mean, I don't know if Wolverine would be what he is if Frank Miller hadn't done that Wolverine standalone miniseries. I collected, the Falcon miniseries, you name it. Like if it was a miniseries and I liked the characters or it was some different combination of characters, I was like, yeah. And I didn't mind knowing that it was going to be finite, but knowing that ultimately I was going to get a complete story, that's the thing, and Tom, kind of with you, like there's going to be an ending for like my books as well. Like Might is there's going to be a finale at some point. It just depends on how long it takes to get there. Into the Suck, same thing.
Well, I'm just going to let everybody know right now that there'll be a finale to this show, and it will be when I die. That's just the way it's going to be. But what I'm looking for in stories, and this is just me, is that I want enough content and enough of something that I could write my teeth into, whether that's 6 issues or 12 issues. It's not necessarily even an issue number, but I don't want to be like into a story and then you do an issue 1. I'm like, man, this is awesome, and then you don't come back. I need something that I have enough to bite in. So if you give me 6 issues, but I feel that I'm investing in that, you're giving me enough things to bite into and pique my interest, even if it's for 6 months or even for 3 years, if it's indie and you're doing 2 a year, I feel like I'm invested. I think that's just my problem in comics, is that sometimes there's just not enough for me to get invested into something.
Yeah, well, it's hard to start at something, unless it's like a creator that already. It's hard to start something just sort of out of the blue, because again, it's like, well, I'm going to get number 1. Am I going to get anything else? And that's sort of a crapshoot in some cases. So yeah, it's a very real thing, and that's why I tell people, especially, I get really excited when people get trade paperbacks finally. Like I know you're doing one for Into the Suck, and like Larry Higgins just did his Niobe trade paperback. I'm like, guys, that is such a perception change for you as a brand to have a trade paperback on the table. It's literally like you finished a season of a TV show, and now you can sell that season. I'm so excited for you guys to have that, because I know it's going to be awesome when you guys are going to cons and meeting new people, and you're going to be like, here's the whole freaking thing, man, in one big book, because you can see people's eyes like, oh, that's cool, and then you say, and we're working on volume 2 right now.
It's fascinating, but I do want to get back into Bad Kitty, because obviously it's
we don't want to talk about that.
So one of the things, and I was on a show, and Indiegogo, I'm just unfamiliar with it, and it makes me feel a little uncomfortable just on a perception, and I'm just not familiar with it. So
yeah, I'm not either. CB and I have both done Kickstarter. I mean, I'm aware of it. I've seen it. I've kind of looked at it, but I've never really done a deep dive into it. So it's on Indiegogo because Dynamite wanted to put it on Indiegogo, and it's also on Indiegogo because Indiegogo wanted it on Indiegogo. They actually came to Dynamite and said, "What do you have?" And they were like, "Well, here's these things," and they were like, "Oh yeah, we want you to put Bad Kitty on this platform." So they actually asked for it, which I was like, "Oh, that's kind of interesting." but it is a little slightly different platform. It works generally the same as Kickstarter. The primary difference is that once you've picked out all the things that you want, and you click pledge or back or whatever the button is, that you get charged right away. It's not like Kickstarter where they do all the charging at the end of the campaign. So that's kind of the primary difference. Now the book is already funded, well funded. There's 124 backers. There's not quite 2 weeks left. There's about 13 days, I think, left. So if you guys have not checked it out, you have plenty of time to do so. And if it's a matter of like, well, I have to wait till the end of the month till I get paid, I understand. I've been seeing sort of cycles like that on the campaign already. Like, you get to the 15th, people got paid. Oh, there's a surge of stuff. So I know I can see that's part of the Indiegogo experience now. But if anyone has any questions about it, you're free to shoot me messages, and I can try and help you figure it out. But it works essentially the same in your picking your content that you want to buy, but you will be charged as soon as you click back this project.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that's one of the things is that there's a lot of people who are very familiar with Kickstarter. I am familiar with Kickstarter. Indiegogo kind of scares me. I only backed one project on Indiegogo, and that's because that was the only place where it was. And again,
Yeah.
my cup of tea per se, and because I'm just more familiar with Kickstarter. That's what it comes down to. So I do want to get that one out there where it's extremely similar, but it also is slightly different. And obviously, I don't want somebody to not have any money and then hop up and be like, "Oh, snap!" That's a big difference.
Yeah, just be aware of the payment system, and you'll be fine. If you need to wait till the end, wait till the end. It's not a problem at all. But you guys can check out the campaign. There's tons of amazing covers. There's previews of the actual work. You can see CB's and Chris's pages. They put up like 6 or 8 pages, so you can kind of see what the book looks like on the insides. This is not awesome covers, and then I got my 8-year-old cousin to like draw the book. No, we have a real professional art team that knows what they're doing most of the time.
So let's even talk a little bit about that. So obviously there's a lot of stuff going on with this. There's a bunch of covers. So this is, I don't know who did this cover. It's probably your 8-year-old cousin did that cover, right?
Pretty much. Yeah. With my left hand, I had my eyes closed. I was falling asleep. I drooled on it a few times, but
that's all the stuff that's leaking off the monster. That's the drool that made it through.
I think that cover was done a few months before the script was done, even.
Basically, I had told him that we're going to have this monster that he designed before we even started working on the book. And I was like, let's just put the monster in there sort of in the shadow, so we're not kind of giving away everything. And it came out great.
And then there's, I think, 8 more or 9 more at this point. There's this one, and I forget who did this one.
That is Bill McKay and Sanju Nivengoon. And I think that is Bill's first Dynamite cover. I have to check that with him, but I'm pretty sure that is his first work for Dynamite.
I think that's right.
And then I know who this is. This is Rachel Holland. I think that is just her last name. Faces by Rachel, I think, is her Instagram.
Yep. She's got a couple of cosplay covers, and then there's I want to say they did something like some mini prints or something with her, but I'm not positive. But yeah, she did an amazing job on the cosplay. Like, holy crap. And here's the crazy thing about this is that she did this photo shoot, because again, we were trying to get this out in 2021. So she put this costume together, and had these photos done by the end of October. So she absolutely barreled into this, so that in case we got to do the campaign in December, we were ready to have her with us.
So to even talk about her, because she does a lot of stuff. I think with Red Sonja, I think she's done a Sheena.
Barbarella, she does all kinds of stuff for them. Yeah.
And so she, in a lot of ways, and I'm going to drop it in, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but she has worked a lot with Dynamite, and she's almost Dynamite legacy as far as a cosplayer goes.
Yeah.
And so, what is that like? Because I think that adds some credibility to this campaign. It adds some familiarity as well.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really familiar with all the cosplay stuff that they did, but I think Dynamite, because I follow Dynamite on Facebook, and they published a Barbarella cover with her, and I was like, oh my god, this would be amazing. If we could, that was basically it. I was like, hey, I know you guys do cosplay covers. What about this girl who did Barbarella? And they were like, oh, that's Rachel. And I was like, I mean, if you guys are going to do cosplay covers, we got to move fast because we want to get this out, last year. And so they were like, well, I don't know if she can do the thing. And I was like, well, I mean, just ask her. And she dove all the way in. She did like a big old shoot. There's all kinds of pictures as well that I don't know what they're going to do with them, but she nailed it. She absolutely nailed it. I'm thrilled with what she did.
Because the way I view it is that she's a familiar face with Dynamite fans.
Sure.
And that is very helpful because, obviously you were speaking on the Comic Hangout with your background.
Well, yeah, everything else about this book is Big Dog Inc., basically. With a few, crossovers like Shannon Mayer and Joe Linsner are sort of, they go both ways for both companies. But the book itself, the interiors and a lot of the covers is all Big Dog Inc. guys that a lot of Dynamite people probably don't know who the heck they are. And so, which was part of the reason I was like, I want to bring Brian Peterson to Dynamite. I want people to see what he's doing. I want to bring Bill McKay. I want people to see what he's doing. So it was great that we got to have basically everybody that I pitched. We got on there. There was only one that couldn't do it, and that was just because of scheduling. So I was like, damn, that's fantastic. So yeah. And then having Rachel was awesome.
There's that, which is the blank cover, and blank covers are just fun.
Sketch covers.
People like blank cover sketch covers. Obviously, there's this one. It's really cool.
That is Maria Sanapo, who also does a lot of work for Dynamite, and she's done some stuff for us too.
Then there's this guy who
Shannon Mayer
may or may not have a very valuable cover. Just saying.
Yep. This was the guy. As soon as I got off the pitch with Nick, I shot Shannon a message. I was like, I cannot do this without you having a cover. And so Becky made sure that he was on the schedule, or that we were on his schedule rather. So Becky was a huge help in making sure that was going to happen in the right sort of time frame. He did a fantastic job. Unbelievable. Love Shannon forever. So I'm super, super happy to have him on our first Dynamite book.
And then there's this one too.
Michael Maria. This was a guy who I found on Facebook, and I asked him if he could do covers for me. I was like, yeah, dude, come do some Big Dog Inc. covers. He says, well, I'm exclusive with Dynamite. So I was like, damn. So then as soon as I found out that this was going to happen, I was like, cheat code. I'm going to get you to work for me in a different way. And so that is Michael Maria, and awesome job.
So what is that like? Because obviously it's not a secret that some people are exclusive to certain companies, and it kind of is good. I mean, because obviously they're getting paid, they're getting work, they're getting a lot of work. And if an artist can get work and make it work, because let's be realistic, and CB, I think you're going to agree with me, being an artist in anything is hard, because there's plenty of starving artists. There's plenty of people who are barely making it as artists. And if you sign an exclusive deal, hopefully you negotiated that deal well and you're getting taken care of. But it also, you can't work with that person, but then you got to work with them. What was that like? 'Cause that's kind of a cool thing sometimes, how it works out.
Yeah, it was a cheat. It was a pure cheat code. That was just a life hack. It just happened to work out that way. It's pretty rare nowadays.
So you can work with him. That's the real story, right?
What's that?
You wanted to basically do Bad Kitty because you just wanted him to do you a cover.
Yes, that's right. I pitched an entire comic book just so I could have a cover by an artist. Yeah. It's pretty rare nowadays that you find guys that are doing this, even if they have exclusive contract, usually they can still do work as long as it's not interrupting the other work. Like if they just have a gap, they can be like, well, in September I can do something. Okay, cool. Sometimes those doors close and they have to go back to the other places. But, unless it's somebody like, I don't even know anymore. Somebody big time that just is only working for them.
Peach Momoko,
generally speaking, you can kind of wiggle it around, but it really depends on their schedule. So if Michael was exclusive, I was like, dude, I understand. And like I told him then, I was like, if it ever works out, if you ever have a gap, you ever needed something, just tell me. I will have something for you. And then of course, when this came around, I was like, oh, Michael, go talk to Michael.
And then there's this guy, and I'm not too sure who this guy
Brian
is.
Peterson. Yes. Brian Peterson. I told him, and I told CB as well, but I was like, we want big hair again. We want to bring the big hair back. So he went super big on the big hair.
So that's a good one right there, and that might be the steal. Just saying. And then there's this one too, and
Joe Linsner,
yeah.
And Joe's worked for me before. He's done a cover for Legend of Oz way back in the day, and so this was another one that I was like, hey, I know Joe works for you. Let's get him on if we can, and he did it.
Because I don't remember that Linsner cover with you, and I know that Joe Linsner does a lot of stuff for Dynamite. I have a bunch of Joe Linsner covers, and I'm like, when did he do a BDI cover?
That was Legend of Oz #4. So you're talking about, almost a decade ago now.
Because that's just one of the names that is just so familiar, I think, with Dynamite fans.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're a Dynamite fan and you're a diehard Dynamite fan, I mean, I think Joe Linsner, and I don't know anything else that Joe Linsner has done outside of Dynamite, which is probably not a
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You've heard of Dawn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
that's his creator-owned book. You've heard of what he's done besides Dynamite.
You know what though? It doesn't connect in like my head, in which that it's just like I just know him from Dynamite. Like that's the whole thing.
He hasn't done any Dawn in a long time, so there is that sort of context. He does like a one shot or something every now and then, but Dawn in the '90s is why Joe Linsner is who Joe Linsner is right now.
Mm-hmm.
I just know him from like his awesome stuff, and he's done a bunch of Betty Page covers, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is like freaking candy. It's like it's just terrible. It's just terrible. And then there's some other stuff that you have going on with this too, which I think is great. I am a big metal card guy, so these are the metal cards. And
there's metal cards. They're also on the covers too. You saw all those covers; they had the logos on them. There are version editions of those as well. So if you want to buy them just clean art, that's an option. There are graded versions of these things that you can get as an option. There are foils you can get as an option. So there's pretty much anything you want to do with that art. There's something available for you.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I was looking at it earlier today, the entire campaign, and I have a feeling that there might be one or two extra printed, but this is really print to order. And so
right.
If a hollow foil is in order, there may be one or two that are printed just for Dynamite's reference.
Yeah, I don't know what they're like. Even when we do hollow foils, generally, if we do print to order, usually there's a minimum that we'll do like 25 or something. So even if we get orders for like 20, we'll make 25. But that's there is that thought process. They want to ship these out like in October. Like they want to be able to turn and burn and put these in people's hands. There is, and we've talked about this a couple of times, there is a possibility that this will run on Kickstarter at some point, but do not bet on it. If you are unsure, at least grab one book, right? Because if they decide we're just going to do this, we're going to do print to order, and then we're done, that's it. It's gone. So make sure you at least go get your one book that you want to get, whichever cover you like. And then if you want to sort of take the chance that it'll appear again on Kickstarter and you want to get more that way, that's fine. But at least you'll have your one just in case it is a Indiegogo only, which at this point, it feels to me like it's going to be an Indiegogo only. But again, it's not my company. It's not my brand. It's not my marketing. But just in case, don't miss out. Make sure you at least get your one.
And also, I don't know how Dynamite runs their stuff, but, hopefully there'll be a distinction between if they do run it on Kickstarter or they run it somehow in previews, that there'll be a distinction of it being an Indiegogo book and it'll be treated more like a first print run, hopefully, because that's just me, the investor.
Sure. In that regard, anything that would be crowdfunding would be a first print. And when you go, if you were to go to if they were to take it to Diamond and put it in comic book stores, which would be great, there would be different covers, that would differentiate, what came first, what came second. Like Brian Polito does that all the time. He'll run Kickstarters for Lady Death, and then a couple of years later, that book will end up on Diamond in comic book stores, and he'll just have new covers on it. So that's a system that already exists. Billy Tucci does that too, etc. So it's a system that already exists. So if that should happen, it's not going to be like that Shannon Mayer cover is going to be available to retail. That's not going to happen.
It's one of the things that I just bring up because obviously I come from the investment world. This is like my background in buying and selling comics, and there's a lot of money to be made. And you'd be surprised that some of this Kickstarter stuff, whether it's a year from now or 5 years from now, or the way Dynamite's going, in case anybody didn't know, Red Sonja is getting a movie, which means that a bunch of other stuff can also get a movie at some point. And you never know when.
I'd like to announce the Bad Kitty movie right now.
Yeah.
What? Who said that?
But it's something that I think people have to realize and keep in the back of their head.
Sure.
With
anything, that's the thing. Any property right now can be looked at and turned into something. Like anything. Like Bad Kitty, you could compare this to something like Winona Earp, or Van Helsing. That's Zenescope and IDW, Winona Earp, very much in that sort of similar vein. Maybe a little bit of supernatural in there as well. So, something like Bad Kitty could be looked at as this, again, because it was an abandoned property almost, right? They did that one shot, and then it took years before she appeared in the Red Sonja crossovers and so on. And now what we're doing here. So, any of these properties could be looked at as, hey, Dynamite, you want to make a TV show out of this thing? And boom, we're off to the races. And suddenly you're talking about books that have, minuscule print runs compared to, like Marvel and DC stuff. You're looking more along the lines of like look at The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead had like a 10,000 print run for #1. And that's nothing once you are a movie, or a TV show that runs for, a decade plus and so on. So that's why those books suddenly command a ton of money. So from the investment side of things, just be aware of all of these sort of smaller properties, even indie properties, can get snapped up and become things. There's stuff out on the market right now that are comic book related TV and movies that I guarantee people don't know were ever comic books.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Van Helsing is a good example that a lot of people have no idea that's a Zenescope property, and now they're starting to
well, that's partially because the TV show has nothing to do with the comic book.
Yeah,
it's just their concept. It's just their concept.
Yeah.
But the point is that, and there's just a lot of other stuff out there too.
Yeah.
Gun hunting is.
But if I think the key piece of information here is that if Red Sonja and Red Sonja is not just a Dynamite property, it's owned by somebody else and so on. It's but Dynamite is part of that because they're putting out the comics for it. So if Dynamite stuff is being looked at as optionable, then anything that they have could be optionable at some point.
Yes, and then there's rumors about Vampirella as well right now. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's very important because we are in the golden age of streaming, and we are in the golden age of TV, and it's only going to get better. Minus Batgirl, but we don't have to talk about that.
Well, and I have two Big Dog Inc. properties that are being looked at as potential TV or movie things too. So, I'm just saying.
Everything is a possibility at this point, and that's the whole thing, and that's why it's very important. And again, I think Bad Kitty is a very easy, position to option in a lot of ways. And in my opinion, very easy. It'll be a fun thing. I mean, I personally think it'll be a great anime.
But ultimately, we want you guys to read the book and enjoy the story and enjoy the character and enjoy the monsters and have a good time with it. Yeah. So even if you're not collecting like for all the covers, just go grab CB's, A cover, the basic A cover, and get a read, because I will tell you this, I have already pitched more to Dynamite. They already have what I want to do in a longer form story and arc with the character that also incorporates other characters that I cannot say anything about. But basically, I kind of pitched this little sort of pocket chaos world where Bad Kitty can run around and do what she does with these other characters that will remain nameless for now. But I've already been given the go-ahead to write another book. So there is already another Dynamite book with a different character that I have been given the green light on. And then the idea there is to do that one, and then they'll blend together. So Bad Kitty and this other character will start to flesh out this new little pocket universe.
And also one of the things that I think is also important, and I've had this discussions with people, it's really reasonable pricing for an indie book. It's $15 for a bunch of covers, and I think the highest cover without any like the foil or metal or grading, I think is $20, which is really in line sort of with an exclusive Virgin as well as other Virgins. And that's the thing too that I think is very important. And I've had this debate, and many people don't get along in the comic world, but the way I feel is that you need to have a fair entry point for somebody to be willing to try your product. And if you price me out, I mean, my price at point is about $20 for, certain covers. And after that, I'm kind of like, I don't want to take the risk. So I think that's the other thing too, is that we're talking $15, $20. We're not talking like $40 or $30 or even $25 for every single cover. So, if you are okay with a little bit of a risk, saying, I don't know if I'm going to like this, but $15 is legitimately the price of 2 Frappuccinos at Starbucks right now.
Yeah, so, just skip tomorrow's coffee and buy a book. You're fine. You'll be fine.
It's a tank of gas these days.
And it'll be delivered to you, so you don't have to go get it.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, but you'll like it if you like supernatural stuff, if you like bad girl stuff, if you like monsters, all that kind of thing. You will like this book.
Mm-hmm. And all I'm going to say is that no balls, no babies is all I'm going to say on this book. So if you're looking for a new book, there you go. That's all I'm going to say. And I have to go watch the Mavericks win another championship. That's such a bad joke. Somebody's going to get that joke. Somebody's going to get that joke in like an hour. Somebody's going to get that joke. It's really a shark joke. I'm giving away clues here. I'm giving away clues for who said that. But anyway, I don't know what else people can expect with this book beyond anything before I give both of you a chance to promote yourself. So is there anything people can expect with this that hasn't been said, or is that it, or should we just be quiet so we don't ruin anything? And people
I think the key is, again, it's 100% an entry point. You do not have to know anything about Bad Kitty to understand this book. Anyone that has read the previous stuff will see all of the little Easter eggs and retro threads from where it came from. But anyone who's brand new to the character, you have no problem diving in and just being ready to go. We're telling you a new story with fun stuff for the people that had the original books. That's basically it. So have no fear about jumping in midstream, because this is really the beginning of a brand new stream.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's as far as I'm going to push on it, because I'm going to ruin everything and I'm going to get all of us in trouble. So I'm going to be quiet about ruining anything with the story or anything with Dynamite or what could potentially be. And on that note, I'm going to give both of you a chance to promote, because I know, Tom, you got a bunch of stuff going on. I know, CB, you got stuff going on. So I don't know who wants to promote first, or even where you could be found and what you got going on, or what is expected. I know we're sort of coming into the end of the year where we have September and October, and then I think usually things don't usually happen in November and December. But
guess what? Guess what? I have something in November. So actually, I'm in the process right now of shipping out our much delayed Legend of Oz book. That is going out. We're also shipping out Ursa Minor. That we are in our shipping window, so we got that done, which is great. Issue 2 for Ursa Minor will be shipping in its window, October, November. But we are going to push issue 3 of Ursa Minor to January, because we don't want to be falling behind on it. So we want to make sure that we have way more done before we launch the campaign. So instead of doing that October is going to be open for us, but November 18th is Princess Day, National Princess Day. We've been talking about this book all year long as well. So we're going to be doing a short Kickstarter campaign in November for a brand new Princesses versus Zombies book. It'll be what we're calling issue number 1.5, because it'll be a short, like 8-page mini story. And then that will lead us into the full-sized issue number 2, which will be happening in 2023, which will be our 13-year anniversary. So we'll be starting 2023 with Ursa Minor, and then we're looking at doing finally getting Penny for Your Soul back in print as a trade paperback. We're going to do a hardcover. We're going to completely revamp the entire thing from holy crap 12 years ago. I need to fix a lot of things because it was not, like I said, it was not up to Image's snuff. There's no reason that it should have been. So we're going to clean that up. We're going to have a what do they call it? I don't know. It's going to be cleaned up and better. Trust me.
You're gonna reshoot it. You're gonna not reboot it, but you're gonna remaster it.
Remaster. That's what we're looking for. Remaster. Yeah. Yes, we're not going to George Lucas it, but we're going to remaster it. Yeah. We're going to remaster it as a hardcover and so on, to get that going. And then just a lot of fun stuff next year. We're going to do an anthology called BD13. That is going to have some other people writing some of our stuff. So it'll be like a 40-50 page anthology with some other writers. One of the books is a spinoff from Ursa Minor. And then the other stuff we're not going to talk about yet. And then again, Princesses versus Zombies, and just a lot of next year is going to be very weird because it's our 13 years, so we're gonna play that teenager role next year and just kind of have some fun with it.
So it's going to be a fun year, pretty much. It's going to be an enjoyable.
All the 10-year anniversaries are behind us. We've done that shtick. We're gonna loosen things up a little bit, have a little fun with some new books, new things, and then we I know what 2024 is already, but let's get through 2022 first.
And then what about you, CP? What do you got coming on? Because I know that you just wrapped up Black Rabbit. I know.
Yeah, Black Rabbit is finally done and shipped out after a couple month delay with the printer and a paper shortage, which was very frustrating, but completely out of my hands. But we made pretty quick work. Yeah, it was a mess, and it delayed everything I wanted to do. So I've had to reshuffle. So right now, I can say for sure, Scorpion 4 is going to launch in early October. Black Rabbit 2 will probably be next out of the gate. I don't know if that's going to be September or if that's going to follow Scorpion 4. I got to see how things play out that way. And then Might number 2 will be coming out probably beginning of 2023. And then I will probably look at Into the Select trade paperback. That's what I have in the immediate future right now. But that is shuffled. Originally, I wanted Might 2 to come out next, and then the trade paperback. But with this delay, I've had to reshuffle. So, but I'm excited. Like, the stories are going to continue. I'm excited about all of them. So yeah, and Goth Day will be coming out. Goth Day 2 will be shipping
soon, within about a month. Yeah. Goth Day 2, and we'll have Goth Day again next year as well.
And then I'm always doing various covers for people, so that's always a good time. And so it's going to be a very. I'm really hoping, like you were talking before, I'd like to be able to get out about 4 books a year. I think it's doable, minus delays. And the only reason why I waited is, I didn't want to be that Kickstarter guy that ran a campaign but hadn't finished fulfilling one already. Even though I think I've earned a reputation of not being the Kickstarter cheater. I've fulfilled everything that, to the best of my ability, that I've ever run on Kickstarter. So I think I can probably start overlapping a little bit within reason. And I'll probably start doing that because it just keeps everything more efficient for me going forward.
I have my own mixed feelings on all that, but I've also gone through about 6 projects out of the last 8 that I backed that were not good and that were burning and are still burning, have that reputation. So I have a lot of questions about Kickstarter right now, and it's a creator problem. It's not a platform problem, but there's not enough enforcement, I feel. But that's a different discussion.
Yep.
And but I'm easing up because unfortunately the burns that have happened are bad and they're well known. And if you don't know the burns that I'm talking about, there was a D&D game that's really bad and left a bad taste in my mouth. But I digress right there. But having said everything, I'm going to keep saying it. If you like something, you need to support it. And indie creators in particular, you need to support. Even if an indie creator is doing $1,000 or they're doing 30,000, again, a lot of that money goes to the project. A lot of indie creators are not Marvel, they're not DC, and that money goes a long way. And so if you like something and you want to see it continue, you have to support it. You have to actually put your money where your mouth is. Otherwise, that content disappears. Because without money, comics don't get made. If you're a board game person, without money, that game doesn't get made. You know, if you like indie films, without money, that stuff doesn't get made. And so you have to support it with money. And that could be backing it on Indiegogo, that could be backing it on Kickstarter, or that could be picking it up when it comes out. And maybe you missed it, but guess what? If you go and buy a comic book at a con at a table, you're still supporting the next one because that goes to the creator and that goes into them producing their next piece of content. Whether it's that book that's coming next or something else, it still gets to them and pushed out. Furthermore, you need to share it out and all that fun stuff because while backing it is great, if you tell 5 of your friends and then one of them picks it up, guess what? That's another backer and that's further supporting it. So I encourage everybody to go do that. And I get it. Look, money's tight. A lot of people are in complicated situations, but you can tweet something out. You could like something on Instagram. You could check it out on Facebook. You could share. You could tell somebody in person. You could shoot them a text message with it. You could throw it in your Instagram story, or you can make a TikTok about it. As far as I'm concerned, I have something coming out on October 5th. My comic book investing class is coming October 5th. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be long, and I'm teaching you the basics. So if you want to learn how to do this and you want to learn from somebody who actually does this on a regular basis, you know, I'm perfectly for you. I'm keeping the class at $40. It's going to be on Udemy. It will also be on Substack and Locals, depending on your political affiliations. I'll be everywhere. I am not putting it on OnlyFans. That's reserved for my other business. But that's not the point. You can.
I want to see CB do a TikTok. That's what I want to see.
Yeah.
You should put that. You should put that as a tier.
Yeah,
it needs to be like a stretch goal. If we can hit $20,000, we'll do TikTok videos.
There you go.
But that's the whole thing. Also, if you like what I do, feel free to support me, buy me a coffee. But in reality, what I really want is I want my content shared out. I appreciate when people share out my content. It makes me feel special. It makes me feel important. And you can check me out on Twitter at Pop Anime Comics, Instagram Pop Anime Comics, and Facebook Pop Anime Comics, and on YouTube. And if you want to be a guest on my show, guess what? Actually subscribe to all my social media before you ask. Because that's probably going to get you brownie points with me. But I digress right there. And I don't know who wants the final word because I'm out of things to promote.
Go get your bad kitty.
Yeah, get your bad kitty. Get your bad kitty. You got 2 weeks, two weeks ish to get your bad kitty. So yeah.
Well, there you have it, everybody. And I believe that is a wrap.